Hello everyone, my name is Ian, you're watching Big Rock Moto. Thank you so much for tuning in today. So today we have a quick ride, first impressions of the Moto Guzzi V85TT. I'm here at the Revzilla Get On Adventure Fest in the Mojave Desert, and I am demoing all the demo bikes they have here. I just shot a video with the Touareg 660 and had an absolute blast riding that. And riding this Guzzi is going to be a bit more of a laid-back experience, which is just fine. So we've got a 19-inch front wheel. We've got more street-oriented tires on this bike. I've got hard bags on the bike. Actually, the motor feels punchier than I expected. Has a lot of low-down torque. Feels pretty good. The overall feeling of the bike is that it doesn't feel too big or heavy. Definitely not as big or heavy as riding something like a big 1250 GS like I rode to the rally on. And yeah, I'm pretty impressed with actually how it feels so far. I do have to admit that all the controls and kind of all of the stuff that you look at in the cockpit, it feels a bit more old school, a bit more old-fashioned, but that's okay. You do have pretty good technology here. You've got the features that you'd want to have. I do like this big windshield on this model, and yeah, I'm really enjoying the ride so far. So one of the things a couple things set the Moto Guzzi apart from its competitors. It's got that transverse mounted V-twin engine, which gives the bike a distinct look, a distinct sound. And it's also, they're really easy to service because, you know, doing things like valve checks and stuff is very easy to do. Also, this bike has shaft drive, so there's not many bikes at the size range of adventure bikes. Actually, there aren't any others in this size range for adventure bikes that have a shaft drive. Everything else is going to be chain drive. So that's something that makes it unique and kind of interesting. So this would be a good bike for people who don't want to ride super aggressively, but they want to ride long distances. And they just like sort of the uniqueness that comes with owning a Moto Guzzi. Oh, okay. Beautiful day to be out riding here in the Mojave Desert. We had some rain last night, but the ground's already dried up, so it's already back to its usual sandy self. So I noticed that my boot, or the heel of my boot, is coming into contact, I think, with the center stand on this bike. So that was kind of something that felt weird at first. The position of standing, the bars, well, the bars, if they were rotated forward, they'd be fine. They're just rotated super far back on this bike for some reason. The seated position feels very comfy, very relaxed. Like something you just want to cruise around all day on or go for long distance riding. I'm really interested in this Moto Guzzi because it's just a lot different than most other adventure bikes out there. Kind of in the way that the GS is unique with the shaft drive and the transverse mounted engine. This also has those same two features. One thing that's surprising me about, I didn't expect it to be this quick. It actually has quite a bit of punch to the engine. And it sounds good. It has kind of a nice deep rumble to it. You do feel the engine coming through the bars and the chassis. You know, it's not the ultimate smooth engine, but doesn't have a lot of vibration either, but it just gives the bike a lot of character and a lot of feel. The suspension doesn't have a ton of travel. I'll put those numbers here down below, but the suspension feels decent so far. I mean, again, it's not a bike you're gonna, you know, ride super aggressively off-road with, but it actually feels pretty decent, honestly. Bike's certainly not slow. It has pretty good pull, and I like the sound it makes. Okay, Jeff wants to race. I'll give you a race. There's actually, this windshield is causing quite a bit of buffeting, more than I would expect, since the windshield looked kind of big, but I do get quite a bit of wind buffeting with it. Brakes are very strong, feel like they have very good power to the brakes. One thing people have always told me about Moto Guzzis is like you really feel when you shift, like it's a little more of a clunk, and yeah, it is, but it's not bad. It's not like super clunky. It feels better than a lot of the older GSs that I've ridden. The dashboard, the screen on the dash is kind of small. I wish they had made that a little bit larger. It just feels like the screen is a little bit too small. Of course, it doesn't help that it has a lot of dust on it right now, because we've been riding these bikes off-road. When you rev the bike, you feel it move a little bit side to side, just like you do on if you've ridden a BMW Boxer Twin. And I like that. I think it gives it a lot of character. Bike actually is pretty easy to ride. It's not, doesn't feel super big or heavy. The chassis feels pretty balanced. You can actually ride along at a pretty good clip. I'm actually kind of surprised at how nimble it feels. Let's kind of ride through some of these ruts here, see how the suspension feels. Suspension feels, well, nicely damped. Doesn't feel too bad. Has enough travel there. And I'm actually surprised that as we hit some of these sand sections that the front's not knifing in too much. Here's some whoops. Yeah, the bike actually handles it pretty well. Got my rear ABS turned off here in the off-road mode. Yeah, the sand wants to fight you a little bit on this bike, but it's not bad. It does use a 19-inch front wheel, just like the GSs do, so you don't have the more off-road friendly 21-inch front wheel. Oh, I bottomed the back out there on that little hit. So yeah, you're not going to be able to ride this super aggressively like the Touareg I just got off of. That thing was so much fun. You could really ride that bike fast. This bike sounds good though, and it's fun to ride. Jeff was nice enough to let me pass him here. I tend to be a little bit crazy when I ride bikes. Hopefully I'm not scaring these ride leaders too much. They seem to be pretty cool people. They're not too upset by my antics. Now we need to go back to sport mode. Yeah, this dash is a little bit small. It's hard to find neutral on this bike. There's neutral. So yeah, neutral's kind of hard to find. So up here on the dash, it looks like a USB. Yeah, there's a USB port up here on the dash. You can see this kind of frame here under the fairing. You notice at idle, everything kind of vibrates a lot. That's just a characteristic of this engine design. The bike feels, you know, it doesn't feel super top heavy or anything. It feels pretty manageable. The seat height, I'll put the seat height here, but it's not too bad at all. So yeah, 80 miles an hour. There's a lot of wind buffeting, but it could just, I don't know if this is an optional windshield or how this works, but I have to tuck my head down here. There's 90, 95, 100 miles an hour. These test rides are pretty good. Yeah, there's quite a bit of wind noise and buffeting happening here, but the bike, the engine doesn't feel very busy even at 90, and there's not much vibration at all. The motor's very smooth at these higher speeds. My overall impression of the suspension so far is it's a little bit on the softer side, but it is more of a travel-oriented bike, so I can deal with that. But like when you brake, that, you know, you're going to have brake dive. That's just what you would expect. Give it the beans. So it's a cable clutch on this bike, and the engagement, it feels a little weird, but I haven't adjusted it, but it's like it's all the way out at the end of the travel or something. overall, I guess I didn't expect the bike to feel this sporty. It's actually pretty sporty and pretty playful. I wasn't really expecting that. I don't know why. I just expect it to be a little more laid back, but you can have a lot of fun with it. There goes my lead rider. Come on. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. This is how you tend to ride when you're not riding your own motorcycle. See what happens if I lug the engines. 2,000 RPM, roll on the throttle. It's smooth. It doesn't like chutter or chug. It's a pretty good little tractor engine if you want to ride it kind of short shift at low RPMs. So I hope all of you got some value out of this, or at least maybe a little bit of entertainment value. I know this is not really like a thorough review that I normally do, but I just had the chance to ride this and I figured why not take you all along for the ride with me, just on a short test ride. But I'm really impressed with the Moto Guzzi so far. Like, I'm not sure it would be high on my list to like buy one of these because it doesn't really like fit the exact kind of riding that I want to do. But I'm actually impressed with how this bike performs, and I'm going to be working with the Piaggio group that owns Moto Guzzi to try to get one of these as like a press bike to do some longer term review with, see how it is to live with over, you know, a month, taking on some of my local trails. So stay tuned for that. I'm hopefully going to be able to do that sometime this summer if they're willing to work with me, which I hope they will be. So thank you all so much for watching. Please support Big Rock Moto, and there's a bunch of ways to do that in the description below. Ride safe. We'll see you out there.